Many video game consoles have come and gone over the years. And with each new console is a brand new controller.
Ooh.
What controller do we think is the best controller of all time?
The cream of the crop. Ooh, yeah.
Our picks coming up next.
Let's cue that music.
It's time for the show. What show, you ask?
Show and tell.
Hello there, Guildies. This is the Adventurers Guild. I'm Steve,
Still Jesse.
and you have tuned into a lovely controller edition of Show and Tell. So, as you heard in the introductory bumper, and by extension, in the title of this video, oh god. Today's topic is, what is the best controller? Any system, any platform, doesn't matter if it's Sega, the 3DO, whatever, Microsoft, Nintendo, anything, if it was a controller that controlled something, video game console specifically, it can be the choice, so to speak.
It's a Philips disk drive. That long remote. That one.
A couple super quick announcements, and we're going to get through these ones really fast. We have a poll up on guildhallforum.com, which is a lovely place to have a focused discussion about all things gaming and pop culture. For a chance to win a $5 Nintendo eShop gift card, all you need to do is go on and go ahead and vote what you think is the greatest controller of all time. So there's a whole list on there about any system you could think of, pretty much. Just take your pick and write in the comments why you think it's the best one. You'll be entered automatically for your chance to win.
Plus your favorite celebrities in there. Or they're not. I mean, you can't prove it.
And the only other announcement, our Patreon, big thanks to all of our Guild Hero patrons who are appearing right here,
Wow.
because you guys are awesome and you help make these videos possible.
You guys are super.
All right, now let's cut to the chase, shall we?
Yes.
So, I suspect you probably picked the controller from the Atari 5200.
Absolutely.
One little joystick and one red little button.
What else would you need?
Well, we could have picked the ColecoVision, which was even weirder because it had
That
the
little dial.
it had the dial, it had the keypad, it even had an asterisk and a pound button. Very bizarre.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
And it had those two little gray buttons on the side. Super weird.
You really studied that controller.
Well, I had a
Take it out on a date first, Steve.
Oh God, this is already falling apart.
Let's do this.
Let's just get right to it,
Let's
shall we?
whip out the preciousness.
All right, 3, 2, 1. The greatest video game controller of all time is, of course, the Super Nintendo controller.
It's the Sega. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible controller. It's a PlayStation 4. I don't care what Steve says.
Oh, boy.
Going modern, baby. Boom.
This is already over before it started.
I know.
All right.
I know.
So I believe, if memory serves, and it always does. Don't ask my wife because she'll disagree. But if memory serves, I think I went first last time. So let's hear your, quite frankly, terrible rationale as to why the PS4 controller, the DualShock 3, is the greatest controller of all time.
Hello. Hi.
You did say PS4, right? Yeah, PS4.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else am I going to grab here? Hello, Internet. How are you doing? And all those people out here. This is the PlayStation 4 controller, also known as DualShock 4. It's an improvement from the DualShock 1, which was the second controller released by Sony back for the PlayStation 1, or at that time, as the young kids called it, the PlayStation. Who knew it was going to get a bunch of sequels? Oh, okay. So back to this controller. This controller is simply the best for simple reason. The design, it's comfortable in your hand. All the featurettes of it, touchpad, press sensitive. You know what I mean? You press a button harder, your character acts harder. Placement of analog sticks. Don't argue.
I gotta quote that. You push a button harder, your character
Works.
acts harder.
Works harder. All right. Your home screen, your file share, your options button. This controller was meant to control everything on the. Well, that's every controller, I guess. Every system. But it's amazing. You can share video, games, photos. I mean, the touchpad by itself is just an amazing feature. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Little blue light. You know what's amazing about this controller, Steve?
What's
And
that?
I'm going to need your help for this one. Have you ever played that Power Ranger beat 'em up game?
Yeah, of course. For the,
When you
for
pick the
Nintendo
red-
Switch.
Trucker. when you play as the Red Ranger on the PlayStation, light turns red.
Oh,
When you play as the Green Ranger, green lights.
Oh, that's earth shattering.
Steve is going to try to convince you that this old, out of date Super Nintendo controller
Just where do you hear my rationale?
is going to be the best.
Just where do you hear my
But
rationale?
we're not talking about what's the most fond or what gets brought up the best memories. We're talking about the most current, comfortable, amazing controller. And that's the PlayStation 4. No controller has improved plus this till maybe the PlayStation 5. But the Xbox One, get out of here. Boom. All right? I'm sorry, I can't say nothing bad about Nintendo. They're watching us. I just love Nintendo. But no, I honestly think this is probably the best controller ever made. I love it to death. As a matter of fact, if you want to, there's a little attachment you can buy that gives you 2 extra buttons. It's called the back button attachment. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And just improves the controller that much more. Steve?
And first of all, did you have like a bunch of sugar before this started?
I didn't.
All right.
You know, we run through these things quickly.
So, I think the most important point that Jesse made from his entire failed spiel was, in fact, that the harder you push the button, the harder you act. Because remember,
it's pressure sensitive.
if I push the button a little bit, I look like this. But God forbid I go hard and push it hard. Now that's a stare.
They're pressure sensitive.
A hard stare.
Jealousy.
Here you go. All right. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Super Nintendo. Sure, the nostalgia.
What is this thing?
Oh, it's a cord. Okay, it's old. It doesn't have wireless
sorry.
and Bluetooth. All right.
bad.
So I know what you're thinking. Oh, Steve always picks the Super Nintendo. He said it's the best console ever. Bliggity blue blue. So of course he's going to pick the controller as the best. No, I have very good logic as to why this is the best controller of all time, and I attacked this from a different perspective than Jesse. So Jesse went with, the feature set, the blah, blah, blah,
Modern
all the
convenience.
analog sticks, the modern convenience, it's Bluetooth, the battery lasts forever, you have 2 analog sticks, it's got a completely useless touchpad that no games use except for like 3 of them. It's got a ring of light, which is even more useless, blah, 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 the list goes on and on. It's feature packed. Okay, great. So
Falcon punch him.
I can break this down in 2 segments.
Okay.
1, ergonomics. 2, functionality. Oh, I'm sorry, 3. And the third one is innovation. Okay? Ergonomics, innovation, and functionality.
I mean, I know what that word means. but
Okay.
Just for the people at home, what does it mean?
Hear me out. Ergonomics, and we'll blow through this one really fast. So, the original Nintendo controller, which is really the birth of the modern video game controller, the original NES controller. You look past all the Ataris and all that stuff. When you think of the first video game controller, most people think of the NES controller.
The rectangle.
You hold that thing for 30 minutes, your hands hurt. Eventually there was the dog boating controller, etc. But the original NES controller was a square. It hurt when you held it for a while. It had 2 buttons, whatever.
The rectangle.
So Super Nintendo solved that by rounding the edges. Okay? So you can hold this all day, all night, marathon sessions, whatever. It feels perfect in your hand. Big hands, small hands,
You know what else has round edges? Baby toys.
fat hands, skinny hands. It don't matter. The ergonomics, fantastic. So we're already past that point. So they revolutionized the ergonomic aspect of it.
Turned into a baby toy. All right, continue.
Functionality, which was my second point. Nintendo, with the original NES, it had a D-pad, a start, a select, and 2 buttons. Okay? So you want to talk about... Let's actually bleed the innovation portion into the functionality. We're going to combine both to make it easier to digest.
Oh,
Okay?
like a Transformer Devaston. I like
Just
that
think this
Devaston.
through. Think about every other controller that came after this, okay? They all share similarities, okay? So, Nintendo with the NES invented the D-pad. The Super Nintendo has the D-pad. As time goes on, all controllers still have D-pads. Nintendo took the layout of the face buttons, A, B, X, and Y, and every controller since has had some form of a diamond shape, or not all, but most have had some form of a diamond shaped face buttons. X, circle, square, what do I forget? Triangle. A, B, X, and Y on the Xbox, A, B, X, and Y on every future Nintendo console. You know, the list goes on and on. Face button layout has stuck. What else did Nintendo innovate on? Oh, shoulder buttons. What a great idea. You're playing like this, you have two free fingers, your pointer fingers. What if we put some buttons on top for an L and R? Guess what? Every single controller since have had shoulder buttons. Heck, they've doubled down. Xbox, PlayStation now have 4, not just 2. But the whole concept of shoulder buttons, revolutionary.
What was it in the shape of a trigger?
Let's think about this. Let's compare this to its main competition. As a matter of fact, ironically, you did it as a sight gag, but it's actually fantastic that it's here. The Genesis came out a little bit before the Super Nintendo, but they're both from the same generation, 16-bit generation. Nobody ever thinks about the Genesis controller anymore because, I mean, it's a fine controller, I guess, but when you compare it to the amazing innovation and functionality of the Super Nintendo controller, it's a joke. Nothing is carried over from the Genesis down the line because there's just so many.
Hold it for you there, buddy.
There's so many issues with it. So, and again, we're using the Genesis controller because it's a heads up comparison because they came out at the same time. The face buttons, they went with a 3-button side-by-side layout, which, you know, logically, or, you know, take it at face value, that makes sense. You know, you want to add more buttons, blah, 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 so let's just have 3 in a row. You know, there it is. You know, they didn't think that, hey, shoulder buttons, what a good idea that would be. They only have a start button instead of a start and select. As a matter of fact, they realized that the controller was so terrible, or so lacking so quickly that they actually had a newer version that had 6 buttons. So, I mean, you know, Nintendo...
Which that one is recognized as a great controller, but definitely not the old school.
You know, Nintendo didn't go out and have to change their controller halfway through their run because of whatever. You know, their controller was great from the beginning. But the fact of the matter is, I'm getting on a little bit of a rant here.
You? No way.
I would just like to point out that this is the birth of the modern game controller. There's no analog sticks, but there was no 3D. You know, I mean... Maybe it would have worked on like Star Fox with the Super FX strip or something like that. But you know now we're cutting hairs here. It's the grandfather of everything that came after it. So when you look at it from a sheer innovation standpoint, if this controller didn't exist, none of these other controllers, this guy, nothing would be the same. They would all be different. And for that reason, this is the best controller of all time, the most important controller of all time, and, quite frankly, the most innovative controller of all time. And it just about does it for my time. It's about skin 30 over here, so I think we're going to go ahead and say, as I wrap this up, because I don't have any Bluetooth in this, we're going to go ahead and vote on what we think is the clear-cut winner. And I'm going to go ahead and go first, because, quite frankly, I mean, there's no way that thing is any better than this. And his little caffeinated rant with the...
the harder you hit the button, the harder the guy moves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter how... Quite frankly, it doesn't matter I mean, I won. Okay? We'll have to edit that joke out. All right. You're up.
Oh, you want me to vote?
Mm.
Oh, you voted already. That was your long-winded
Super
answer.
Nintendo.
So, we were talking about, you know, you went on a nice spiel about how amazing the Super Nintendo controller was and how every controller has followed it since and everything like that. But what you left out was every controller has improved upon the design. And the idea was the best controller. Let's talk about what's improved the most. Bam! DualShock 4. I'm done with that. Figure it out in the comments, baby. I'm always going to go.
My incredible rationale, and I broke it down scientifically, ergonomically.
No, I got it. Yeah, I get it.
And you're still going with that?
It
There's
said-
no denying that the PlayStation 4 controller is great. The PlayStation 4 controller and the Xbox One controller, they're both fantastic.
Oh, yeah, I can say that.
I mean, they're both just there's nothing wrong with them. Frankly, they're wonderful. It's just that they didn't bring anything to the table. I mean, how can you say that's the greatest?
Touchpad, baby. Share button.
It's just modern conveniences, sure, but it's not innovative. I mean, I guess if you attack it from a different angle, I can almost see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, like maybe your logic is sound.
Thank you.
But I mean, compared to the glory of the Super Nintendo controller, there's just no contest. Sound off in the comments below, and more importantly, go to guildhallforum.com and vote and voice/sound off on why you think your pick is best.
Sounds good.
There we are.
You can vote with the likes of Scott Baio and Tom Hanks, or they're probably not in our
They are definitely not part of our forum,
You
but that would
sure?
be awesome if
You
they
don't know
were.
if they are or not. Like, be anybody.
That just about does it for this really odd episode of Show and Tell.
Yeah, why did I go with Scott Baio? There's so many other celebrities I could have
You only know what they say. Charles, he is in charge. Oh my god, we gotta end this. For the Adventurers Guild, I'm Steve.
Still Jesse.
Please turn the camera off. Just shut it off.